If you use Airtable on your business, did you know you could automate simple daily tasks by using the internal native automation features available inside it? But what if the native automation features aren't enough? Well, you could also use external services to build even more complex types of integrations. But you might be asking, Kyle, how can I do that? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how you can use the native automations features inside Airtable and also other types of services and external resources and tools you can use to build more complex types of automations using Airtable as well. And if you're not using Airtable yet, this is also a great video for you to watch because you are going to understand why you could be using it on your business as well. Hi, I'm Caio Calderari from AutomationHelpers.com. We help companies like yours get automated and grow by using industry-leading tools to build portals, apps, integrations, and much more. Subscribe to the channel if you want to leverage tech to help your business grow. All right, let's now jump into Airtable. All right, guys, so I'm inside Airtable now. I have a very simple base here that I just created to show you how it works. If you don't have your account yet, just go to airtable.com and create one. It's going to be free to get started. Inside my Airtable base, this is the common view. We have the grid view. We have some fake data here. At the top, we have this tab called Automations. If you have never played with this section here, this is exactly what I'm going to teach you in this tutorial. So what are automations inside Airtable? Basically here we have built-in automation features, meaning you can automate simple tasks and use existing data from your Airtable setup to integrate with other third-party services. Now let's take a look at how this works. Inside the Automations tab, we have this area here where we can start creating a new automation. For instance, we have some examples that they give us. Send an email, send a Slack message, update a record, send a weekly digest, or even generate a weekly digest in Google Docs. Now, these are pre-made recipes we can use. So if we click here, it will create this automation for us. And then we just have to set up this automation, which will ask us to give it a name, and then it will explain step by step what we need to do and how we need to configure this. So if you want to give it a try, I recommend you create an account or access your existing account and give it a go. We are going to create something from scratch. Obviously, this is just an example. Now we are going to create one together from scratch. Once we have an automation here, we are no longer going to see that same suggestions. They are now available here, right? Now we have new buttons here. We have this button to create an automation, and we also have this other one to create a section. We are going to click here to create a new automation, and then we can give it a name or not. In this case, I'm going to call it automation example. And as we can see, it's off. That's by default. Once we finish creating this automation, then we turn it on. Now we have this setup here. Every time we create a new automation inside Airtable, we have to start with a trigger. The trigger is the first action that will start our automation, meaning what is the thing that's going to happen that will make this go and start running the automation itself. Now, we have some suggestions here that we can use, or we can click this button here to add a new trigger. Let's take a look at some of the options we have here. We have this first option that is when records matches conditions. So let's say we want this trigger, this automation to happen when someone adds a new item on our Airtable base, and this kind of item matches a certain condition. So it works kind of a filter. It will analyze all the data we have inside our Airtable base, and once a new record is identified with certain conditions, it will say, oh, I've identified this record. It matches the conditions you selected. Now trigger this automation and do something based on that, okay? Now we have some other triggers as well. When a form is submitted, so when someone submits a form, it will trigger this, or when a new record is created, or when a record is updated, when a record enters a specific view at a scheduled time. So this is for recurring events, so on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, on an annual basis, so at a scheduled time. We can also use webhooks here, so this one can be used to integrate other types of services and external APIs via webhook, and also when a button is clicked. So if we have a button on our Airtable base, we can click on that specific button, and then this will trigger the automation. We also have some integrations here that can serve as triggers as well. So we have by default a connection with Google Calendar, and we can trigger an automation when a new event is created on a given Google Calendar, or when an event changed, or when an event is canceled. Okay, so by default, Airtable gives us these three options to use natively, meaning we don't have to use any third-party service to do this. We also have a native connection for Google Forms when a response arrives. We also have a connection to Google Sheets when a row is created. We have Outlook as well when a new email is received, or Outlook Calendar similarly to Google Calendar as well. So these are all triggers you can use to say, hey, when something happens, start this automation, okay? Once you select any trigger, I'm going to select this one just for example. The first step is to configure the trigger itself. I just have to select an interval here. I can select minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, or just one time. I'm going to select one here just for example. You can click this button to test this trigger. In this case, of course, it's going to be successful because it's a very straightforward trigger, but this button can be useful for you to check if the rules or the configuration you've done here is actually correct and working. Okay, so make sure to test if the trigger is actually working. Otherwise, your automation will not run. Now, once you select the trigger and configure the trigger, we now have to go to the second step. We want now to start creating our actions. And then once we click this button here, it will give us a lot of options. We can create conditional logic. So if we want to say, oh, based on this information, if the information is A, do something. If the information is B, do something else. We can create these kind of conditionals and split what is going to happen based on this definition. We also have repeating groups, meaning, for instance, if we have a list of items that we are receiving, then we can do specific things for each specific item we are receiving from that list, okay? We also have some options we can choose from Airtable itself. For instance, we can choose to send an email message, or we can create a new record, update a record, find records, sort a list, run a script, or we can use AI built-in to generate content or even ask for help to do some specific tasks. As we can see here, we also have some integrations available with third-party services. We can do a lot of interesting integrations here and automate simple tasks using these features built-in and available inside Airtable. For instance, we can send a message on Slack or send a message on our Microsoft Teams chat. We can also send a message using our Gmail account. As we've seen before, instead of using Google Calendar as a trigger, we can also use it inside our automation. We can create events, update events. We also have access to Google Forms. We can create responses. Google Sheets is also available, so we could add information to Google Sheets from here. We could also create a Google Doc or update an existing Google Doc. We could create issues on our GitHub, create records inside of Salesforce, create issues inside Jira, or even create posts on Facebook from Airtable. We can also send emails using Outlook, or even create events using Outlook's calendar. We can also schedule posts using Hootsuite or even send SMS messages using Twilio. So that's really helpful because only by using Airtable, we can do a lot of things and create automations using all the native features. That's amazing. Now, if you're enjoying this content so far, make sure to click the like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you want to keep learning more about tech and automation. Okay, now let's create a quick automation together so you can see how it works, and you can also try to do it yourself and replicate the same steps as I do it. I'm going to start with a very simple example. So let's use some of these templates so we can just see how they work and how they are built. So I'm going to choose this option, send a Slack message. The first part here is a trigger when a record matches a condition. And here we can see how it's set up. It's pulling information from my example table, which is this one here. It's defining this condition here when the status field is done. So basically we have some data here. Under the status field, we have to do, in progress, and done. And all these tasks are either to do or in progress. We don't have any tasks that are checked as done. So what's going to trigger this automation is when the status changes to done. Anytime anyone is using Airtable and for some reason they come here and change the status to done, it will trigger the automation. And the action we have here is send a message on Slack. If we click here, we have the description label, which is optional in this case. And the configuration says the action will run, and there is no condition here. It means it's always. We have the Slack account. In this case, I need to connect to my Slack account. So let's do it. I'm going to click here, connect to Slack. This pop-up will show up. I have to make sure I select the Slack channel that I want to connect to. I'm going to click allow. This way now, Airtable can connect to my Slack channel. I can select the channel. In this case, I'm going to choose one of my existing channels. You could also create a new channel just for that. It's up to you. And this is where I need to configure the message that will be sent to Slack. So here I can freely customize this message. For instance, I can say this is an automated message from Airtable, and here I can say a record was updated in example table where the status is done, and here it's showing the base record URL. Okay, now I can also add some other dynamic data. If I click here, it will show all the fields that I can collect. So for instance, I can get the status, I can get who the person is, the name, or the user who took the action. Then I can get the username or user email. So here you have to create this message and structure the information you have from Airtable in a way that makes sense for the type of message you want to send. Once you're ready, you can generate a preview, click to run the test, and it will show the results. In this case, no record is checked as done, so it's not going to work. We can come back here and change one to done. So this will now be a valid trigger. Generate a preview again, run tests, and now it will show the example data 1. So it seems it's working. It's going to actually send this message on my Slack channel. And then if I go to Slack now, I should be able to visualize it. Now, once I'm done, what I have to do is to turn this on, and this way this automation will be active. So whenever something happens on your Airtable, it will trigger and run the automation. So if I come here and click done, it will trigger the automation, and I will receive a message on my Slack channel as configured. If I want to check everything that is going on with this automation. I can check the history by clicking here. Once your automation is on, now you just collect the benefits of having a simple task automated, and hopefully this automation will save you a bunch of time and help you complete little simple tasks on a daily basis. Hey, if you need help building a project or if you have any questions, we are here to assist. Visit our website at automationhelpers.com. We are offering free 30-minute consultation calls with our experts. I'm sure they will be able to help you get your project done. So visit the link down below and make sure to book your call today. What if we cannot create the automations we want by using the native features available? Well, that's a very common scenario because not all the times we will have access to all the services and features we want from the native automation built in inside Airtable. That's very common because sometimes, yes, we want to automate more things. We want to create more sophisticated types of automations that unfortunately we won't be able to achieve by using the native automations. What can I do instead? Well, I'm going to show you. We can leverage other more sophisticated types of automation services that will give us more flexibility and more resources to create different types of automations and to connect to other services that are not available inside Airtable in a native way. We can use, for instance, Zapier, we can use make.com, or we can use tools like Pipedream as well. But if you ask Kyle, you're giving me 3 options, which one should I use? Well, I'm going to say this in a simple way. Of course, this will really depend on the type of automation you want to build and your skill level and experience. But if you are just a beginner and if you want to just get started with automations, go with either Zapier or Make. I would say Zapier first because it's simpler. The user experience is easier to understand and simpler to learn. Now, if you're a little bit more familiar with the tech space, you know, a little bit of code as well, maybe Make could be a good option for you. And if you're really like a developer, you know how to code, you've been working as a developer for a long time, then you can try Pipedream because it will be a little bit more sophisticated and it will allow you to work with actual code while building automations. So depending on your skill level and how fast you want to build this solution, this automation, you will choose one or another tool. In this particular video, for this tutorial, I'm going to show you Zapier because I think it's going to be the one that most people will be familiar with and will be able to use on a daily basis and from scratch. So let's jump into Zapier now. Okay, guys, let's take a look at Zapier now. I'm inside my account here. If you don't have one, just go to zapier.com and start for free. Let's create a new Zap here. By the way, if you've never used a Zapier before, their automations are called Zaps, okay? So I'm gonna click here, create a new Zap, and click here. It will go to the canvas. Here, I can build my automation. And one nice feature we have here inside Zapier is the Copilot, which is an AI assistant that can help us create our automations. If you don't know how to get started, you can simply talk to the AI and ask for help. It will generate some ideas and suggestions for automations you want to build. Let me just explain you how this works. As we saw before inside Airtable, here we have also a trigger, but the difference is that we can choose from more than 7,000 different apps and tools to use as a trigger. And we can also use webhooks, APIs, and other more complex types of integrations to create a variety of automations. So let's say we want to use Google Drive or Gmail, HubSpot, MailChimp, or any other service. We can click here to check the entire list that they provide. And this is huge. We also have some premium apps and we also have some AI models built in as well. So that's why using Zapier can be an alternative to the native automations we saw before, because here you can do a lot more. And like I've mentioned, you can use Zapier, you can use make.com, or you can also use more complex tools like Pipedream as well. It's up to you to choose which tool you want to build. I recommend you test all the tools and check which one you like better. To get started here, we just have to select a trigger. And the good part is, of course, that I can select Airtable. So if I want to connect this to my Airtable, I just simply search Airtable. I select Airtable as the trigger, and now I will have access to everything that is happening on my Airtable base, and based on things that are happening inside Airtable, I can trigger other types of actions. So the first step is to select Airtable. Once you have Airtable selected, you will choose a trigger event. And here you can find these two options, new or updated record, or just simply new record. I'm going to select this option, and then the next step is to select your account. If you don't have one yet connected, you just click connect a new account, and this window will open up. It's very simple to connect. All you have to do is to click add a base, select the specific base you want to give access to, or you can select all workspaces and all bases. That's up to you. I'm going to select this option, grant access, and then it will show up here. Click continue, and then you select the base you want to connect to. In this case, I'm going to use the example base. The table will be the example table. Now, in order to select this field, which is required, you have to go back to your Airtable base and create a new column here. And you should choose this option here, last modified time, okay? Create this field, then go back to your Zap and choose this refresh results, and you will see this option here. Select this option, and then you click continue. Click to test the trigger. You will see some sample records here. You can select any of these options, click continue, and now you're gonna go to the step 2, which is creating the action. Now you can choose any of these apps or integrations available to connect with your Airtable data. So basically here, you're getting information from Airtable when a new record is created or updated, and then you can get this information and send it to other applications. For instance, we have HubSpot, we have Notion, we have MailChimp, Calendly, and many other apps. Let's say we want to integrate Airtable and Notion, for instance. We can click here and we can get this record we just created and add to our Notion file. Or it could be a Notion that belongs to someone else. It's up to you. All I have to do is now to configure this event, and I can do a lot of things here. I can add a comment, add content to a page, create a database item, create a page, and much more. In this case here, I'm going to choose this option, create database item, and then the next step will be to sign in to my Notion account. I'm going to click here. I've selected my Notion account here. I'm going to select pages. Here, I can select any of these options. For now, I'm going to select all the pages I have just to make sure I have access to everything available here. And then I'm going to click here to allow access. Once that's done, I'm going to click continue. And now I'm going to select my database. I'm going to click refresh results just to make sure it's pulling all the databases I have available inside my Notion account. And I see two options here, the test database and the example database. I'm going to click on this one, select this, and then I can see the field that I have inside my Notion database. If I go to my Notion database, this is how it looks like. It's empty, and I have one column called name. Now, if I go back to my Airtable, I also have a column called name. I have other types of columns as well. So if I wanted to get this extra information from Airtable, I would need to create something similar inside Notion. Since I'm just creating this as a tutorial, I'm not going to create all the fields. So I'm going to go back to Zapier, and here on the name field, I'm going to select the content that is coming from this first step, which is coming from Airtable. I'm going to click on the plus icon here, and then here I'm going to choose the name field. As we can see, the AI Copilot is also trying to help me, giving some suggestions that could be helpful for this type of task that I'm wanting to accomplish. So as we can see, it's accurate. It's providing this as an option, which is exactly the option that I'm looking for, which is the name field. If I want to bring extra information from Airtable to Notion, I can do that, but in this case, I don't want to, but I will just select a couple items here just as an example so we can see how it works. So I'm going to select a couple items here, bring all this information under content, okay? Now we have a field here for the content format, which can be plain text or markdown, depending on the type of content you want to bring from Airtable and what type of style you are using inside Airtable. For now, it's going to be plain text. I'm going to click continue, and then I can click to test this step. Now Zapier is actually going to pull information from my Airtable and add this to my Notion database. And if everything works well, if we go now to Notion, we will see a new record here, which is the example data 2. I can click open, and all the extra information that I've added is being added inside the content. So it's working. Of course, it's not really well formatted, so that's why it's looking this way, but we could, of course, fix that in a second. So the integration is working. Now we are pulling information from Airtable when a new record is either created or updated. This automation will run every 2 minutes. So have that in mind. It will just continue running once you turn it on every 2 minutes, and it will do exactly that. Of course, here we could add extra steps, even send this information to other types of services. So you could build other types of automations, more complex types of automations as well. Now, the next step is to click here, give it a name. I'm going to call this Airtable Zapier integration example, and then I click here to publish. It will publish this automation and it will turn it on, meaning now if I actually go to my Airtable and either add a new record or update a record, it will run. So let's go to Airtable now. I'm going to add a new record, call this new record. And here I'm going to just add something. I'm going to select a status, and that's it. Now, if we go back to Zapier, we will have to wait this to run. If we want to force this automation to run right now, we can click here, run, and it will run. And then we are going to see the message here. And once we go to our Notion file, the new record will be available here on our database. Again, this is just a very quick and simple example of what you can do with Zapier. You can do a lot more than that. And if for any reason Zapier is not enough for you, for the type of automation you want to build something a little bit more complex or robust, you can also use other types of automation tools. You can use Make or even Pipedream or other automation tools. Now, if you're looking to build more complex types of automations, we can help you. So make sure to visit the link down below and book your call today. I'm sure our experts will be able to help you get it done. I hope you learned a lot of valuable insights and information from this video. If so, leave a comment down below and click the like button. Now, if you want to keep learning more about tech and automation, we have a lot more content for you here on this channel. We've prepared a lot of tutorials and awesome videos just for you. So make sure to keep watching more videos here to keep learning more about tech and automation. Thank you so much for watching. I catch you on the next one, and let's automate your business.